along with my friends. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay, so before seeing this video, you have to know about what type of OS, okay, we have to use it into the for programming. And so, I mean, in the previous session, you have just seen about some information about what is the boards, the different boards available for IoT programming. So, I mean, hope you heard about what is called Raspberry Pi, right? Is my screen is visible to everyone? Hello?
It's visible, sir.
Yeah. So the thing is that today I'm just going to discuss about the usage of Raspberry Pi D Plus board along with Arduino. So in this session, I'm just going to tell you how we can make use of Arduino board connected to Raspberry Pi. Here in this concept, Raspberry Pi, as I had said rightly, that is a microcomputer. Okay, so I'm just making use of Raspberry as a master one, and Arduino as a slave to them. I mean, Raspberry Pi. The reason for this, you will be, I mean, informed you later. So, for as soon as you purchase a Raspberry Pi, okay, you can get in the Raspberry Pi board for around 3,500 rupees. You can get it from Amazon. Raspberry Pi. The 4S launch is a little bit costlier. So if you go for 3, so in this, this question shows you most, okay. So this is a Pi board. You can get it for around 3,000 rupees hardly, okay. In sometimes, okay, it comes with an offer around 2,500 rupees, but right now the price has greatly decreased. It's around 3,030 rupees. And this port comes along with I mean, onboard Wi-Fi. So there is no need for adding additional Wi-Fi support to this board. So this board is a microcomputer, and as I said, okay, if you connect a display to it, it acts as a mini computer. So you can install some OS into that. Usually the Raspbian OS, what I'm just going to tell right now. So that OS you can install it, and see it is a Linux-based machine. Okay, so you can just install all your Office and everything, and it's supported with the ARM processor of this is an ARM V8 processor and 64-bit processor with a speed of 1.2 gigahertz, and it supports onboard 1 GB RAM capacity. Clear. So it has a 802.11n wireless support, so which can operate some 5 gigahertz bandwidth. Okay, 2.5 as well as 5 gigahertz bandwidth, and it supports up to 100 Mbps LAN speed. I mean, LAN local area network connectivity in a wired mode. And Bluetooth is a 4.1, and that's all. Okay, it is having a slot at backside. I will show you where it is. So you can see here, rightly. So there is a slot at backside of this particular pin, okay, where I'm just showing. So in that slot, you have to insert a memory card of micro SD card, which is a minimum memory of 16 GB for mounting the OS. Okay, so now we just look into the Raspbian OS. So if you type Raspbian OS in Google, okay, it will take you to the link called Raspberry Pi download software for Raspberry Pi. Okay, so this link. So here you can see there are two OS available. One is called Raspberry Pi OS. Previously it is called as a Raspbian. Still, as we as a tech guy, okay, we used to call it as Raspbian OS and Noops. So whenever you purchase this Raspberry Pi, the default operating system which comes with Raspberry Pi is called Noops. And but I mean, unfortunately, we are not going to use Noops because of this limited operation, and we are just going to work with Raspbian. So click on this Raspbian. So you'll be having different versions of Raspbian clusters will be there. So you can choose either of first two version. Okay, either you can choose this version or another version. Okay, so this is I mean, this third one is called a Lite. Okay, which is having minimal options for it, but this one seems to be pretty much easier because of its lowest size. Size is about 1133 MB. But if you want to have some additional software support, by defaultly, if you want to get some programming environment, you can go with Raspberry OS, which is having the size of 2.5 GB. Okay, the first step is that you have to click it. It will be extracted as a zip folder. Then you have to install a tool called imager, Win32 imager. Have you all known about that? What is called a Win32 imager? So Win32 disk imager, have you seen the software? Anyone? Oh, please answer me. I mean, I'm not getting any response from your side. So are you there? Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So after after downloading the OS, you have to store it in your drive and then insert the memory card, okay, using a memory card reader to your computer. And then as soon as you insert it, it will be just loaded in this device path. Just click it and load the image. Well, it will be an ISO file, okay. So just load the image and just without changing anything here, don't put any hash code, keep it as LAN and don't check it out, okay. Simply click write. So after doing this, the complete OS will be installed into your memory card. Okay, so minimum you have to get a 16 GB card. If it is possible, get 32 GB memory card. Okay, 32 GB or 64 GB or 128 GB. Okay, as far as how large is memory, you can store that much data you want. Okay, so that is a concept. So this is a first step in, working with Arduino and Raspberry Pi. So after doing this, your OS is ready. Now insert your OS in the back side of your Raspberry board. Okay, so here you can see that. So this is a Raspberry 4. So here in this particular area, right? So near this space, okay, below to that there is a slot for inserting a memory card. Insert the memory card, and after that you have to initial boot up your Raspberry Pi. So for that you have to make use of two things. One is called the VNC server. Can you see this? So this is a VNC server. This tool is also available on internet. Okay, just to download this server, VNC server from the site. Server for Raspberry Pi and for a VNC server for Windows. Okay, two versions are there. So right click on it and so we thought of giving a practical domain to you, but due to our policy standards in SSN, okay, we are not allowed to make use of this VNC because it is a remote access tool. So it is forbidden usage, but anyhow, just we already use in my home. So download that and install the VNC server. So once you install, it will be looking like this. VNC viewer will be there, right? So the image will be like this. So now you have to follow this, go through this video that I'm just going to show it to you. The first boot up of your Facebook. So that is what the Raspberry image is now. It is, we are burning the image. So once it is done, network seems to be very poor. Okay, now this is what. So this is a Raspberry Pi board. I connected this board via HDMI cable to the monitor or TV. You can just connect it, and this is the power cable. This is just simply, mobile adapter cable, and I just connected this HDMI port from board to the TV, my home TV, and then at the back side, okay, I inserted that particular, the micro SD card. That's all, and I inserted the optical mouse here. Okay, that is wireless mouse. This is a wireless mouse adapter. I'm just touching here. This is a wireless mouse adapter, and by using this, we can control this board using your wireless keyboard and laptops. So that is the config. That is the setup here. And now, as soon as you boot it, so initially while you on booting, okay, it will be just you will be getting the Raspberry OS image here. So that's why it is called as a single board computer. So it is initial booting of your Raspberry OS. By default, you will be getting Loops OS. You have to format that and you have to install this Raspberry OS. So once you installed it, okay, you will be getting an symbol like this. Okay, just like your Windows symbol, you will be getting a Raspberry symbol. Click on that. So here we have that VNC server installed. Okay, by default in based upon your package, this VNC server by default is installed in the Raspbian OS. So you just click it and enable. Enable certain settings. I will show you. So this is we connected to the Wi-Fi. Okay. So now on clicking with the Raspbian symbol, will be getting a Raspberry Pi configuration. So in that you just set this information. Okay. So auto login, click as current user, and host name you can change the host name as Raspberry Pi. By default is some Pi. You can change it to Raspberry Pi, or even you can give your name. And the same name it will be visible in your desktop computer. Desktop VNC server computer. Okay. And you have to check this button called wait for network. So the reason is that, so whenever, this is the first configuration. Once this configuration is done, later on, there is no need for connecting this Raspberry Pi once again to the screen or any other laptop. Laptop or maybe any other wireless keyboard or mouse. Okay, you can just simply power off your Raspberry Pi, and you can access the Raspberry Pi from remote terminal. Okay, so by using your Wi-Fi network connection. So if it is a local area connection, then you have to go with VNC server. Suppose if you want to access your Raspberry Pi over the internet, okay, that is if your Raspberry Pi is at home and if you are in office, okay, if you want to work with Raspberry Pi, still you can do that in making use of your TeamViewer software, connecting with the IP address. So you have to click on this wait for network option, and then here you can get a change password, right? So you have to keep this password, updated. For example, while you are logging from the system, try this. Okay, so my image of Raspberry Pi will be appearing like this. So if I just click it, okay, it will be connecting to my Raspberry Pi and asking for the password from my end. Okay, so that password I have to provide. So if you're not providing any password, anybody can log into your Raspberry Pi and work on that. So for security reason, you have to put that password here. Set the password. So once you click this, this one, okay, ensure that it is checked out. So every time when you switch on the Raspberry Pi after this first initialization, okay, then automatically the Raspberry Pi will search for the local network and connect automatically to it. Okay, so that is the reason why we have to choose this one. So regarding the interfaces, by default we'll be having a VNC associated with that. Okay, make it enabled, and except this SSH, okay, secure socket host, okay, rest everything should be enabled. Okay, so this is for some security enabled program. If you want, you can enable, otherwise you can disable. There is no issues with that. So this is also available in Raspberry Pi configuration, which is in Raspberry. Just like a Windows symbol, we have the Raspberry symbol, like menu button. In that, you'll be getting this Raspberry Pi configuration. So you can set your local time. Okay, set the time, and also your keyboard layout, everything you can set it in your Raspberry configuration. So it'll be just like our control panel. So next one is how to control the Raspberry Pi remotely. Okay, you can see it here. It's a desktop. It's a laptop. Okay, laptop, and the Raspberry Pi is no way connected to the laptop. Okay, directly. So the Raspberry Pi is powered up and it is connected through my home Wi-Fi, and from the home Wi-Fi, it is being displayed in my laptop. So from this VNC client viewer, I'm just going to control the Raspberry Pi. So on clicking the Raspberry Pi, ask for the password, and after entering the password, the same thing is also happening in system. Your TV which is connected via HDMI port. So there is no need for any display there. Okay, simply you can it came actually. So whatever we are seeing there, it is also available in my VNC viewer. So this is how we can access the Raspberry Pi remotely. Any doubt? Yeah, audio is not clear, madam. It's breaking out.
Screen is not shared, sir.
Screen is shared.
Yes, it's not able to see.
Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So, by, I mean, can you see the video? Can you see the video?
Yes, sir.
Hello? Yeah, okay. So this is how we can communicate with the Raspberry Pi remotely. So simply you can power up the Raspberry Pi by using your your mobile phone adapter. That's all. As soon as you boot up, okay, as soon as you powered up, the Raspberry Pi will automatically connect with the your home Wi-Fi or your office Wi-Fi to which it is configured. So your Raspberry Pi environment can be accessed by using your VNC Weaver, which is installed in your laptop. Even you can install the VNC Weaver in your mobile phone also. From mobile phone also, you can just code with Raspberry Pi. Okay, anything is possible. So if you're gonna use VNC server, that is only suitable for LAN communication. Okay, that is in a single Wi-Fi system. Suppose if you want to use your Wi-Fi, your Raspberry Pi over internet for longer distance communication, better make use of a TeamViewer software. So your Raspberry Pi will be having an IP, right? So my Raspberry Pi IP is 192.168.1.8. That's my IP, Raspberry Pi IP. So I can just open the TeamViewer. So go to TeamViewer and just click the IP address of the partner ID here, and then click connect. Okay, it will be connected with the Raspberry Pi software. Okay, so this is how we can configure the Raspberry Pi at the first initial stage, and later on we have to connect the Raspberry Pi with the Arduino board. Okay, for programming. You can ask me one question: why not we can directly work on Raspberry Pi? Of course, we can work it, but the thing is that the Raspberry Pi ports, the plugs or ports, whatever it is having, the GPIO pins, we used to call as the GPIO pins, general purpose input output pins. All those pins are completely of digital pins. Okay, we do not support any analog pin. So most of the sensors, okay, if you want to get high precision sensors, we'll be choosing only analog sensors for its varying voltage level. So in that case, okay, we need to have some additional ADC converter for adapting with Raspberry Pi. So to reduce the, this kind of unnecessary works, simply what we can do is that we can have a Arduino board, Arduino Uno board, on which we can have our, setup, okay, connections, everything. And this Arduino board can be, connected with your Raspberry Pi through, an serial cable like this. Okay, I will show you serial cable, and through which we can communicate with Raspberry Pi. For example, whatever the programs I write, okay, I'll be writing on the Raspberry Pi environment. So I'll be making use of a protocol called, I will just show a protocol, Pi Fermata. Can you see this? So this Pi Fermata is a protocol. Can you see my screen? Okay, so this is a protocol used for enabling communication between your Raspberry Pi and then your Arduino board. Okay, so Arduino board supports both analog and digital pins, whereas Raspberry Pi supports only digital pins. So due to the next flexibility, we had to go for some boards like, so Pi Fermata is used for communication between Raspberry board to Arduino, or yeah. So we use this Raspberry board and the Arduino Uno for our programming, and also I just started working with the boards called Node MCU, ESP32. So these are the other two boards, okay, which is prominently used in today's IoT market, this Node MCU and ESP32. So if you are having any problem with having two boards, okay, you can directly use Node MCU and ESP32. The advantage is that both ESP and Node 32, ESP32 Node MCU supports these above two. These above boards directly supports more pins and Wi-Fi direct, and also Bluetooth DAT. So this is an advancement in case of your Node MCU and ESP32 when compared with Arduino. So it has more options when compared with Arduino. But for the first initial setup, okay, initial training session, we can go with Arduino Uno board, okay, along with the Raspberry Pi board. The thing is that if you are choosing node MCU and ESP32, there is no need for these two things. Simply, we can have this node MCU, which is having onboard Wi-Fi. We can just configure the node MCU. We can write some code into that. We can just power it up, okay, to start to work. And directly to upload data to the cloud. Similarly, ESP32 is somewhat a higher version of your node MCU, somewhat advanced, but having more computational power and then, the memory storage, okay. So that's a difference. And now, next one is I want to show you some connections, okay. Can you see this picture?
Yes, sir.
Can you see? Yeah, okay. So this is this is a fundamental connection for connecting for testing purpose, okay. If you are well versed in electronics, okay, and this seems to be very much simpler and then child's play for you. But those who are new to the, new persons for electronics, they have to understand it somewhat better, okay. Now, I just want to explain this one. And this is an Arduino Uno board. You can just see the buttons associated, the pins associated with that. These are the power pins and also reference pins here. Okay, you can see the Arduino board, gives out the voltage of 5-volt level. Okay, the 5-volt supply is available from the Arduino board, and these one A0 to A5. These are the analog pins, 5 analog pins where you can directly connect analog sensors, which is having a 3-pin configuration. 3-pin configuration means one pin is used for ground, another pin is used for VCC supply, and the center pin is usually called as a data pin. Okay, so these are called analog sensors. Digital sensor usually comes with the 2 pins, okay, only positive and negative. But in case of analog sensors, we'll be having 3 pins. That is the easiest way to differentiate what are the analog sensors and which are the digital sensors are. Okay, so we have an analog pins for supporting analog sensors, and here you can see there are digital pins, okay, available. Okay, from ARF to ground, okay, and 13 from 0 to 13 we have digital pins. And this one, there is a name called PWM, okay, pulse width modulation pin, which is indicated by this tinter symbol. Okay, so these are the pins which is called a hybrid pins, which can convert digital out into analog out. That is possible. Okay, and also we can feed in digital input and make it as an analog. Feed digital input and convert into analog input. Okay, so for special purpose we can do this kind of things. For example, if you are using any potentiometer for reducing varying level of electricity, we can just feed into this one. Okay, so that is supported. So these are the pins available, and you can have this LED on board LED. Okay, TX and RX. These two are LED, transmission LED and the receiving LED. So whenever the board is transmitting some data, this LED blinks, and whenever the board gets some data, and this LED blinks. Okay, so this is general LED, and this is a configuration of your Arduino Uno, and this one is your audio line. Okay, 3.5 mm jack for getting audio from the board, and this one is the your Ethernet port, and this is reset button. And now this is a simple thing which I just connected. So this is a push button. Everyone knows about the push button. If I just press this button, whatever the power value, what I feed here, we can get it from here or here. Okay, so that is a use of push button. And here I have a used resistors. Okay, 220 kilo ohms resistor, and this is an LED. So the experiment is that whenever I press this button, the LED glows. You can ask me one question there for doing the simple task. Why we have to go with this Arduino configuration? So our intention is now to do this. Okay, to demonstrate how the program actually works. Okay, so for that, I just took a simple example. Now this push button is connected with 5 voltage, 5 volt from your board. So that is commonly given here. So breadboard. So breadboard concepts, everyone knows about it. Okay, this is horizontally connected, and these are vertically connected, and this is a divider, and here it is vertically connected. So this is horizontally connected strips. So a common 5 volt is given here. From that, I just took a lead, and then I given to the push button. So this push button is grounded by resistor. Okay, this is called pull down resistor here. Okay, this is pull down resistor, because usually when we pass a 5 volt supply, there is a pressure points applied here. Okay, inward pressure, that is inward pressure applies a 5 volt level, and the electrons will start move from ground to the port. So this concept of placing a resistor here is called a pull down resistor. And now the output current of this particular push button is fed into pin number 10. Pin number 10 of our Arduino Uno board. Now, this configuration is over. And now for LED, the positive terminal of this LED is connected to the 13th pin. Okay, the negative terminal is connected to the ground, the common ground. And so this 13th pin is not going to defaultly, it's going to give any power value until we program it. It's going to be null terminal. Okay, so this is a common ground, and this LED is also connected by using 220 kilo ohms resistor to pin number 13, because LED's operational voltage level is 1.5 volt, but the volt what we provide is 5 volt. So if you give it directly, it will be burned out. So to avoid this, we have just given a pull-up resistor here. Okay, this is pull-up resistor, this is pull-down resistor. Fine, right? So this is about the configuration. And now, so I just made a connection video by myself. Can you see this video? Is my video visible?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a push button.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is a push button I used. The same circuit I'm designing here. So I just inserted it, and then I'm just choosing wires. I'm not mentioning about any color codes here. Instead of that, I have to make sure that whether the jumper wires are actually having sufficient length for connecting with the Arduino board. So that is a common ground I'm just applying. Usually I prefer the white color jumper wires for data pins, for taking out data. So this is the 220 kilo ohm resistor I'm just using. For measuring the resistance value easily, there are a lot of mobile apps are there. By giving the color code, you can just measure it. So one of the app name is, I will show you. There is a tool called RCC calculator. RCC calculator in the Play Store. You can download the tool. It's actually a very simple tool. By seeing the color of your resistor, the lines, okay, the cross lines of the resistor, you can, if you apply the same colors into that, okay, you'll be getting the resistor values. So resistance values and then input and output voltage values, amperes values can be calculated by using the formula, V equal to IR, the Ohm's law. Okay. So for 1.5 volt, how much resistance we have to apply? We can just go with the power, amperes, V equal to IR, that is the current value, and then resistance value, we can get the volt value, support volt value. So choose resistance according to that. Suppose if you have multimeter with you, it's pretty much simpler for that. Okay. So multimeter cost is around 150 rupees only, the very standard one, a digital multimeter. You can just buy it for checking. That is useful for most of the electronic cases. For example, if you found that some LEDs, whether you want to check whether it's LED is working or not, you can just check it with multimeter. And for connectivity of wires, for burned out circuits, everything you can check with multimeter. So that is also one of the essential tools whenever you start working with electronics. So I just connected it. The same circuit what you have discussed previously, the very same circuit I'm just designing. So now I just connecting. So this is my Arduino Uno board. It's cost around 550 rupees only. Okay. So that is the pin I'm just going to insert. Since the LED is a digital one, okay, I have supposed to insert in case of my common ground pin and digital pin. So 5 volt is given via this blue color wire as a common line. As a ground, this orange wire is grounded commonly. That is a ground. I mean, okay, so this is connection. Now I just connected the equipments, I mean sensors, with the Arduino board, and soon this Arduino board, okay, is going to be connected with Raspberry Pi. I will show that video. So next video, I mean push button control. Yeah. So this is set up actually, and you can see this blue color wire, right? So this is what called serial cable that is going to be connected with this Arduino from Raspberry Pi. So if I press this button, the LED blinks. You can see that the board is on, and just check this button, transmission receiving button also. The RX and PX blinks. So it means that the communication is actually taking place. Okay, it is not directly connected. The communication, the entire communication is taking place via this board. Okay. Actually, the program is running in Raspberry Pi. Okay, it is. I'm not coding anything on the Arduino board. Whereas the Arduino board is controlled by Raspberry Pi, and in Raspberry Pi, I just written the code for executing this. So this is my program for doing this. Let me explain this program. So this is a protocol I said. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now, so once you have configured the Raspbian OS, everything, and finally you have to open your Arduino IDE. Okay, that is Arduino Sketch environment. In that, in references, we'll be having, you can add some references, right? In that, you have to choose PyFirmata, PyFirmata, PyFirmata. So the PyFirmata sketch will be loaded, and then that you have to, send it to the Arduino board as an initial step. Okay, then only the Arduino will get the PyFirmata program to execute. Okay, so that is the first step. So that is, I don't have the video here. Okay, because I have to do it, practically to show you how we can do that. Since the remote access is not allowed, okay, I'm unable to perform the particular task. That's why I just prepared these videos. So once the PyFirmata is loaded to the Raspberry Pi board, then simply you can open any IDE in your Raspberry Pi. Okay, so this can be done by using VNC Viewer in your laptop. So open VNC Viewer, click, type your Raspberry Pi OS, Raspberry Pi's IP address, and it will connect with the Raspberry Pi remotely. And then pass for the password, enter the password for login. After that, okay, your Raspberry Pi complete image or the desktop will be appearing in your VNC Viewer. So in that, you can just load any scripting. This what I'm using here is Tony, Tony developer kit. Okay, I'm using this one, Tony. So in that, I'm just writing all these things. Okay, here import PyFirmata. Just I'm using. The best part is that I just made use of Python script, Python coding for working with Arduino. Just remember, in case of in case of working with Arduino, we have to make use of Sketch. Okay, Sketch programming, which is similar to C language. Okay, but we'll be having only two options. One is called loop, another one is called setup. In setup, we have to configure the thin configuration. In loop, we have to go for the iteration of task what we actually want to do. But that is very limited. Suppose if you want to work with any high-end computational task, for example, if you want to work with the statistical data, large amount of statistical data, then that environment is not best part for you. So we had to go with the easiest programming language called Python, just like a playful language. So this is a reason why I just went for Raspberry Pi programming. So Raspberry Pi, you can directly use this Python language for programming. Simply you can import the Python package and you can integrate the IoT programming with deep learning programming, data analytics programming, anything, or even AI programming. So we can incorporate IoT with all this stuff. So that is the reason why we have chosen this Raspberry Pi environment. Now I hope everyone understood why I just gone for this. So import PyFirmata, import time. Now I'm just creating a variable called board. In that, I'm just fixing the serial port number. Okay, this is my serial port directory. Otherwise, I have to give the number. So this is available in the Arduino configuration of your sketch. Okay, there I have to copy it and I have to paste it here. So pypermeta.arduino. So pypermeta is a protocol. That's a class. .arduino is a subclass, and then for that I have to give the serial port number for this one. Okay, serial number, port number. So this is dev/tty-acmo. To this USB drive, place, I have inserted my Arduino. That is the meaning for it. And now IT is a variable pypermeta.util.iterated board. This is very, very important. And IT.start. These two lines are very important because the communication has to take place from Raspberry Pi to the Arduino board. And this communication has to be iterated, okay, not one-time communication. Every time it has to be iterated for getting the board information. So for that, we use this particular code, pypermeta.utilities.iterated, board iterator. So it means that if for each and every time period, okay, or every events, automatically the Raspberry Pi will communicate with your Arduino board. Okay, and also there is one certain problem associated with it. As soon as you start iterating the board, okay, it will take some fraction of second to communicate with the board. So if you're not introducing any delay, for example, you want to read some temperature sensor, which is on your Arduino, which is connected to the Arduino board, temperature sensor values. As if you're not providing any delay to that, okay, what happens in the sense, it will return some garbage value or some error because the sensor's information is not available immediately as iteration starts. So that's why we'll use to provide some sleep value here. Okay, so now IT.start. So these two lines, IT equal to pypermeta.util.iterated board, okay, is for configuring iterator, and then I'm starting the iterator so that communication will take place repeatedly. And next line is just configuring the pin. Board.digital pin number 10, okay, this is an actual pin number 10 dot mode equal to pypermeta.input. So it means that the push button input, okay, the push button is connected with the pin number 10. So when I press the button, that is given as an input, okay. So I just made that pin number 10 as an input configuration. So whatever the signal which passed to the pin number 10, it acts as an input to the board. So board.digital pin 10 dot mode equal to pypermeta.input. And SW equal to, okay, switch, this is switch, meaning switch equal to, I'm just assigning a variable for board.digital pin 10. SW equal to board.digital pin number 10 dot read. I'm just going to read the value that is going to be stored in SW. If it is high value or if SW is true or 1, any case is going to work. So I'm just making the pin number 2 set to high, otherwise 1. 1 means high, both are same, okay, you can just replace it. Else 12.write equal to 0. And reducing a time of about 1 second. Okay, so that's all. The code is that's all. Now that is what the output. So during this, when you press it, automatically the power is, this one, fed into pin number 10, right? So pin number 10 gets the input from the switch, and this one, the white color, pin number 12 is giving high, it's set to high and low based upon the input from the switch. When the switch is pressed, 12th pin value will be set to high. It means that set to 5 volt. Otherwise, it's set to 0 volt. That's all. So this is the way in which we can program the Arduino via Raspberry Pi. And more importantly, the one thing is that it is possible for you to do this task from anywhere in the world. Okay, it need not be have to be in same place. Okay, once instead of using your VHC server, if you're going to use Teamweaver, and you can keep your board and setup in your home. For example, if you want to measure the temperature of your home, okay, you can make use of a temperature sensor, and with the same kind of connections, we can make a connection, and then you have to connect with your Arduino and Raspberry Pi over there. Keep it at your home, and let your network is switched on your your home, and you travel anywhere. Okay, just opening your laptop, just connecting with your mobile data services, you can just program the board and get the data out of it. So this is one example. And next one is the Raspberry Pi actual pin configuration. This chart is very, very important. Okay, so this chart pin number is there, right? So these pin numbers are very, very important, and this corresponding GPIO pins is also there. That is also important. You have it, then you can get it from internet also. And so this is temperature sensor. I just said temperature sensor, right? Temperature sensor is an analog sensor. So that is, you can see my mouse pointer here. This is temperature sensor. So the data line is connected to analog value of A4. Okay, and there is a power line, okay, which is given here and which is fed here. And from that, I'm just using a 220 kilowatt resistor for giving powering to the temperature sensor. And the other end of the ground point, negative point of temperature sensor is commonly grounded here. Okay, so this is setup. And this is a serial cable I'm using for connecting with my Raspberry Pi. Okay, so this Raspberry Pi is no way connected to any computer. It is just powered from the system. And this Raspberry Pi is a place where I'm actually writing the code. Clear? Now I hope everyone understood how I just kind of making this connection. Is there any doubt in that? Hello?
Sir, no, sir, no doubt.
Yeah, okay. So thanks for that. And so this is setup. And there is no physical connection associated with my laptop. Okay, I can take my laptop anywhere, and this is a program for it. So similarly, you can see the same thing. I'm using the same USB port here for connection, the serial port for connection. And this is a board iterator. I'm just starting it. Now, this is a pin. I mean, previously we have seen about the digital pin, right? Now we are going to see about the analog pin. Temperature sensor is a variable. Board.get pin analog :5:I. I indicates input. I'm setting the pin number 5 as an input pin, which is an analog pin. That is the meaning. So now this complete pins is handled by the variable temperature sensor. So simply while one, I'm introducing a time.sleep. Okay, I mean, suppose a couple of minutes back I just said why we have to introduce some delay into that, because as soon as the board iteration starts, okay, it is ready to read some value from the sensor which is not readily available. So we have to make some delay in accessing the board so that the sensor's informations are ready for access. So that is why I'm just introducing 1 second delay into that time.sleep of 1 second, and I'm putting a variable called value to which temp sensor.read. If you just click like this, it will get the actual power fluctuation value, what is happening in the your temperature sensor end. So the temperature sensor, what I used is a low quality, and this is very cheaper one. You can get it for around 20 rupees or 25 rupees. And there are a lot of sensors available in market. Okay, somewhat advanced high precision sensors. Anyway, the coding and the configuration remains everything same. Okay, you can make use of that. So it's actually available in bundle wise. You can get around more than 20 to 30 sensors around the cost of around 2,800 to 3,000 rupees. Just for 2,000 rupees, you can get a lot of sensors. You can just work it out. So, and this is about cells in Fahrenheit calculation, and this conversion is available in internet. Okay, you can just see it. So this is how we can work with analog sensors. And I just so this is a Google script one. Okay, I mean directly we can upload codes to the cloud. Okay, maybe if time permits in next session, if I get a chance, I will just give as a video demo to you. For that also, it is not possible here to be getting implemented because of the policy restrictions. And this is a program. Okay, I will show you one program which is pretty much interesting. With that, I will just point out my session. I mean, previously, Dr. Balaji sir has said about different environment, right, for working with the IoT programming. My favorite programming is PyCharm. Favorite ID is PyCharm. So this is the area where I used to code. So this is a beautiful environment which will take care of everything, whatever the things you do. Okay, by using this Kite artificial intelligence based IDE, it just assists you in writing the code. So this is a program for it's a face recognition program. Actually, I have written this program for. Can you see the code here?
Yes, sir.
Hello. Yeah, it's actually this code is used for detecting our faces. So based upon our facial recognition technique using OpenCV method, I mean the area what I used is OpenCV, and the algorithm what I used is called SVM classifier. Okay, so I used SVM classifier for classifying the images and then taking, learning from the images. Okay, it's about 118 patterns of images can be, learning can be done with a single image. So I did this program for connecting with the ESP32 cam. Okay, so this is a cam name. I will just show it in internet how the cam look like. ESP32 cam. So this is the ESP32 cam. I have just written code for this one and it works perfectly fine. And this is an IoT based cam. So if you just place the camera here, you can get the video information, seamlessly over the internet. Okay, it is available worldwide. So this cam I have just written the code for giving a demo, and this cam is not accessible here because of the same issue, security policies implemented in SSM. I'm just made use of my laptop webcam here. Okay, now I just use a CV, and here I'm using this code for importing my images. Okay, here I am having my image, my child's image, and my image, and my dad's image, and my other person's images. Okay, so this is how we can just import the image. So it will take a lot of time to explain this coding. Next, in this one, I'm just converting the image into RGB color to VGR color. So instead of red, green, blue to blue, green, red format, so that my algorithm, that is SVM classifiers and then this OpenCV will work. So whenever if you just going to see an image, okay, if you're going to work with an image, the image default RGB color code has to be converted into VGR color code. So that is very, very important. That is what I'm just doing here. And then I'm just encoding this page, face of each and every image. And I'm just appending the encoded image to the list. And this one, so this is the image reading and splitting. For example, here we have Ritik1.jpg, right? So I'm just removing this .jpg and just storing as Ritik1. That is what I'm just doing here. Here I'm just encoding the face. First one is color conversion. Getting the encoding values of each and every image is done by this one. Okay. So the point is, for each and every face, okay, SVM classifier generates around 118 plus encoding matrices, and each matrices is compared with the the faces whichever is coming before the camera. Now and then encoding list, fine, this is done. And whenever there is a person who is appearing before the camera is available in the images what I just given in this folder, it will mark present. Okay, it will mark present in this attendance.csv. Click here. I delete the old ones, and this is fresh. I just saved it. Now for giving a demo, right now I'm just going to switch off my video in my web camera because already my camera is utilized in giving demo, so it is not available for my program. So for that, I'm just going to stop my video for a amount of time. Okay, if my screen is visible to you, please answer anyone. Just going to run this program.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
just running this one. Yeah, actually, I'm just hiding my camera. Now you can see the actual images are renamed like this. Now the image is being encoded. Whatever the images I supplied here is being encoded using SVM classifier. Actually, this program was written to access the ESP32 cam, okay, and this is changed for my laptop camera. It takes some time to encode the images. Yeah, encoding complete, and then be getting an additional window here. Can you see this window? So window is visible. webcam window is there, right? Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now see that means there is no, I mean, no data are there. I will show my picture here. So this is myself. Okay, you can see. I mean, entirely the orientation is something different. And now I'm just opening the camera. You can detect my face. So it detected. So it, I mean, boxes, red box is there, and then it detects as my name. So it marks an attendance for me. So at 3 hours, 35 minutes and 25 seconds, I'm in. Okay, so this is by means of web camera in my laptop, but the code is written for ESP32 cam. So I can place the cam in classroom. I can take attendance for each and every person in the classroom immediately. Okay, and these attendance can be ported to, directly to the cloud, and so that there is no local storage. Anybody can access it and they can share it. Okay, so that's all for today. Almost I have given all the presentations. I hope you understood something from it. Okay, and in case of any doubt, you can ask me. Shall I hand over my session to Dr. N. Balaji? Sir, are you available?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Kabilan, I'm there.
Yeah, yes, sir. If there is any doubt, you can ask me.
Yeah, I'll also forward in case if they ask any doubts. I'll convey
sure,
you.
sir. Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, at the nutshell, do you have any doubts?
Participants, you can ask their queries now.
You can ask collectively in case from the morning session. If you felt like if you have any queries to be clarified, I'm open for it. You can ask. Any doubts?
Or else put your question in chat box.
Yeah, I'll also try to answer. And meanwhile, I said you in the morning that I'll show you the healthcare IoT slides. I'll just show you those slides. Just look at it. I'm not going to talk, or I'm not going to handle anything now. 1 minute, I'll share them. Just a minute. I'll be just showing you the slides where you can see. Kabilan, if you want, you can leave, Kabilan. It's time.
Yeah, okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm not going to talk about it. You can just go through. So these are all different devices in the paradigm of IoT, which play an important role in important aspects of healthcare. From paper and fax, we are moving to a digitized environment. So convergence, new information layer, rethinking, Uberification of healthcare, that is what is very commonly termed cost per genome. And they say the value of data is going to be very high when we talk about this. And these are all explosion of different IoT medical devices, app stores, and sensor evolution. We are coming, now we are in the era where they say the passive data gathering is going to happen in the mobile phones itself. You need not have any external devices. Gobi, Bluefit, it detects how much amount of water you drink on a particular given day. Digital diaper for tracking children's health. In case if they go for pee or poo-poo, it will indicate you that, it's a time for you to change the diaper. And these are all some insidables, IPL, the endoscopy. instead of doing an endoscopy, if you take up this chip, it will go inside. It can give you the endoscopic view of your internal body structure. And new wearables like Google Now is for a body which interacts with your body. OnStar, vehicle diagnostics, when is the time, and Future Mirror is a wonderful device. See, Future Mirror resembles in case if someone is smoking for past 10 years. If you give that data and if you look into that smart mirror, it will show them the face, what will happen to him after 10 years of smoking, how his cells will get affected. Or somebody is addicted to alcohol, if they continuously consume alcohol for past 10, 15, 20 years, if they give that data and if they look at the mirror, it will give them a resemblance of how their internal body parts would have got damaged. So these are all some other EEG, ECG devices which could be used for analyzing our mind waves and mind behavior. Diagnosis, these are all the devices which could play a vital role in diagnosis. ECG screening, now you need not to worry for ECG. This device, the small device of mobile size, can do ECG. It can also send the data to the doctors. The Vitals dashboard is a very important dashboard which will capture the data of your heart rate, respiration, number of steps, stress, and calories. Neurological disorder. So these are all some neurological disorder, and they also will try to predict when the disorder could happen. Okay, that is the beauty of this kind of devices. And Qualcomm and Tricorder, they have come up with a handheld device which will predict when a particular person will be exposed to a disease like Alzheimer even before 10 years. And these are all further explorations. Therapy, how can we use it for treatment? Telemedicine, focused ultrasonic women fibroids. Probably the women in India are more, prone to fibroids. We can focus on a particular area rather than doing an open surgery. AI to assist psychotists. So this is already happening in countries like US and UK. IBM Watson is doing it. Personalized oncology. So oncology, you all know what is oncology. By detecting your genes and DNA, we will be able to develop a personalized oncology treatment, focused drugs, and these are all the drugs. Cardiac, birth control pills are there in place. Once you consume, it will, it will not allow you to get into pregnancy and so on. So 3D again plays a very vital role in medical, in collaboration with IoT. Medical education, Google Glass can be used for performing a surgery in a remote. Expert can assist. And these are all some anesthesia. You all know what is the value of anesthesia, and those kind of radiology people here, they are very scarce in a country like India. This could become an alternate for it. And these are all some more devices. I don't have a time, so I'm not explaining you too much. So you can see here, there are 105,000 CT scanners and MRI scans globally. What happens if we are able to collect those data and perform analysis? And fitness, well-being, family, clinical support, home monitoring. Electronic pill dispenser, this is we discussed. Pharmacy on a chip. There are a lot of microchips which are capable of drug delivery. And so these are all different areas which you can look at. And other than this, what else I have? In case if someone was asking about Kuja, Kuja simulator, I cannot run it now, but I can show you the PPTs, what we used for the project, what we did by using Kuja. I can share that PPT, 1 minute. Yeah. So this is the trust-based framework for RPL protocol. You can see here, RPL is a protocol where we try to create a trust in that. We try to embed this trust, this value into it. And I'll go to the straight away. Someone was talking about DUDAG. So DUDAG concept is used here for implementing trust. RPL protocol basically works on the fashion of DUDAG. So we use the VM, Instant Contiki, Kuja simulator. This is how the Kuja simulator graphs will be. You can create a server mode, you can create a malicious client, you can create a genuine client, and this is how the values will be generated. So these are all the genuine modes and malicious modes, and these are all observations. So you can see here at what instance what packet is being sent, who is receiving it, and these are all the graphical analysis. All those graphical analysis you can directly these kind of things you can plot from the graph. It will give you the values. You can see what are the packet layers and packet delivery ratio, throughput, all these things you can do. This is one such example. Other than that, my internal funded project was customizing the IoT protocol for societal applications. We took 3 problems. One was soil and water quality monitoring. Second was healthcare monitoring, where we tried to monitor the ambulatory BP of human beings. And third one was all about indoor air quality monitoring. So I have completed one phase of it. I'm in the second phase. The funded project from Tamil Nadu Science Council of Technology was assistive technology for elderly people. So that there we look at how can we deploy the sensors to monitor healthy well-being of a elderly and physically challenged people.
So there is
that
a
was-
question, sir.
Yeah, one question I saw that, madam. Is there any difference between sensors used in embedded system? No. Sensors, we are not going to change the sensor as it is. Probably you would have seen Kabilan when he was showing the demo, he was using the traditional sensors. Sensors are there from 2 rupees to 2 crores. So now, with respect to sensor, if most of you are inclined towards sensor, then the recent upcoming sensors, what we have to look at is IP based or IP labeled sensors. See, nowadays the biggest problem with the IoT projects are, I may deploy 10 sensors. I'll be collecting the data, I'll be getting the data collectively. If I want to differentiate from which board or which node I'm getting the data, then I require an identification. As of now, the identification can be done only through the program. But physically, if I want to create identification, then we are in the era where IP-based sensors are in the verge of hitting the market. 2 or 3 sensors came, but they were not successful. But soon we will come across sensors with IP addresses. So look out for it. Any other question? Someone has asked my ID. I'll give you. So if you are tired, if you have no more questions, then I'll wind up the session.
Yes,
Shall I?
faculty. Is anybody having any doubt? Okay. From morning onwards, 2 inauguration sessions, so they are feeling so tired, it seems, sir.
Yes. Obviously, it's very hard to sit and listen to the complete day sessions, but I thank Dr. Durga Devi for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interact with you all, and I'll be very happy to get connected with you all for any reasons. May it be a research inquiry or may it be any other inquiry. I'll be happy if I could serve you something. The otherwise is also possible. I could also reach out to you in case if you are doing some potential work in IoT. So we can always exchange informations. In that aspect, I thank organizer Dr. M. Durga Devi and other organizers, if there are some, I don't know, and KSR institutions for giving me this wonderful opportunity to deliver this session. And I hope and wish all next 4 days will be a fruitful session. Please do join and try to get as much as possible, as much as knowledge possible out of these sessions. Thank you again.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kirtana? Kirtana, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. You can say it. Thanks.
So today my words are not enough to express the gratitude. On behalf of the management and participants, I would like to thank our guest of today's session, Dr. N. Balaji, Associate Professor, Department of Information Technology, SSN College of Engineering, Coimbatore. Sir, today your session is very much excellent, and for taking this precious time out and consisting to be the chief guest. We are very much thankful to you, sir. And most of the people have given the real feedback in the chat box that they have get excellent session by you. Thank you, sir, once again. And I would like to thank Kabilan, sir, for giving his valuable presentation to us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, Kirtana madam. Thank you, sir. Participants, your feedback link we will send in WhatsApp group, and attendance it is already pre-recorded one. So I will send you attendance night. Please give me time. I will send you attendance. Those who have not joined today, you can inform your friends. Tomorrow we will have enough time. As today we are having 2 inaugural sessions, we are not able to do it fastly. So tomorrow we will start the session by 9:30. So no problem. By 9:30 we can make sure that all have joined the session, and then we will start. Thank you all participants. I will share.
Is it possible to share materials that are used by speakers?
Yes, sir. I'm not able to hear you.
Ma'am, if possible, can you send whatever materials that are used by the speakers?
Oh, yes, sir. Sure. Google Classroom has been created, sir. We will get material from the participants and the video, everything we will post it in the Google Classroom, and the link will be passed to you. Yes, daily we will do. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Sure, all the videos as well as the PPT presented by the resource person will be posted in the Google Classroom. You can refer it anytime.
Ma'am, feedback link is already shared in the Google WhatsApp, ma'am.
Yes, participants, you can fill the feedback that is available in the WhatsApp group. Have your own time. Thank you all.
Thank you, participants. Please fill the feedback form